So we need to have a conversation about Mamdani. As we know, his election is coming up very quickly, and according to the latest polls, he is far ahead of everybody else. And as a matter of fact, today, they're begging Sliwa to drop out, and he's absolutely refusing to. He's the only chance that we have to beat Mamdani and avoid this nightmare that I think we're headed towards. So let's talk about it, because Mamdani is not just going to be mayor of any city. He's going to be mayor of New York City, the biggest city in the country, the most important city in the country, whether you like to call it that or not. The financial capital of the country and really of the world. And this is going to have a huge impact on everyone, not just New Yorkers. And he's really a huge problem for the Democrats. And that's what I have named this thing to. Let's talk about it. So Mamdani, as you know, is a loud and proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And you can see his buddy over here, another one that I don't particularly like at all, Rashid Tlaib, is also a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I don't see AOC here, but she certainly supports a lot of what they like. Anyway, he's a very proud member of it. He has said that he intends to use a lot of their policies. And as a matter of fact, their people claimed in an article in the New York Times about a week and a half ago that they're going to be giving him instructions as to what they want to see done in the city, and they expect him to follow suit. I want to read this to you. The Democratic Socialists of America, capitalism is a system designed by the owning class to exploit the rest of us for their own profit. We must replace it with democratic socialism, a system where ordinary people have real voice in our workplaces, neighborhoods, and society. We believe there are many avenues that feed into the democratic road to socialism. Anyway, I don't really think I need to explain socialism to you, but I wanted to read to you what they have here. They really want to replace democracy and capitalism with socialism. And quite frankly, this style of socialism has already been tried. I mean, it's really what the Soviet Union was all about, at least at the beginning, before Stalin, took his hard right turn and became a dictator. Except for, virtually every time you end up with a socialist country, you end up with a dictator. So let's not go into this with rose-colored glasses. So I just want to go over this again. This is not progressivism. It's extreme far left ideology. So here you have liberal socialists. It's a donkey. Here you have a donkey and an elephant mix of Christian democracy, liberal conservatism. This is pretty much where most people are, is right in between the yellow and the orange flags here. And that's where the majority of the people are. And then, of course, you have MAGA, which is way to the far right with the Nazi symbol here and national fascism, capitalism. And then you have on the far left here, communism, communism, revolutionary. And next to it, they have socialism, democratic socialism. So I don't really believe that that's where they stop, is with this red flag. Anyway, that is just a chart of the far left, center, left, center, right, and far right. The makeup of the Democratic Party in 2025 is marked by a diverse and shifting ideological makeup, with centrists holding significant sway, particularly after major defeats in the 24 election. While the party has become more educated, liberal, and ethnically diverse, there is internal debate about its future direction, with moderate factions pushing for a more centrist approach to regain voter trust on the economic issues like inflation. Progressive and moderate wings both have influence, and the party is grappling with how to unite its base and regain political ground. really what's happening is the demographic trends in the last couple of years, the dominance of moderates following the 24 election losses, centrists within the party are expected to have significant influence, with a focus on moderating the party's message to address voter concerns about the economy. The internal debate the party faces, an internal debate between its progressive and moderate wings. This is nothing new. This is what's been going on with the party for many, many decades. And quite frankly, the moderates have been able to keep the progressives in check and keep a lot of what I would call the socialist programs at bay. But so we have to look at Mamdani and say, what does he bring to this table, and how much damage is he going to do to the DNC brand and to the Democratic Party? What is he, as the mayor of the largest and the most important city in America, he's going to have a lot of sway, not just within the party, but influencing just the dialogue that goes on. And I don't think that people really understand what's really involved here. I mean, most people in America, 40%, I saw a thing today, 40% of Americans cannot identify on a map where Canada is relative to America. They have no idea. 40%. People are just uneducated in this country. They really don't have a clue. They hear these promises. They think it sounds good. Let's stick it to the man, and let's have, rent controls and all these things. And the problem is that this is really, Mamdani, when he gets elected, and I do believe he's going to get elected, is really going to start a fire. And I think it's really going to be damaging for the Democrats for a long time to come. The Democratic shifts, the party's base has become more educated liberal. Shifting voter base, there's been a sorting out of partisan preferences based on education, with the Republican Party gaining more support from non-college educated voters, and the Democratic Party's share of the college graduate voting plateauing. The ideological leanings, while the party's overall voter base is diverse, a 2024 study by the Pew Center found that a greater share of voters identify as liberal, also identify with the Democratic Party, than conservatives do with Republicans. More conservatives identify as independents than they do Republicans. The demographic profile of young voters, however, is changing. A powerful age block in the primary voters this year, for this primary this year, voters aged 25 to 34 had the highest turnout. That's about 40% of the early voters were under 40. In neighborhoods in New York with a median age below the city average, Mamdani won by 18 percentage points. First-time voters, Mamdani campaign successfully mobilized a significant number of young people who had not previously voted in primaries. Nearly 25% of young voters who participated in the primary had not voted in recent ones. They did a very effective social media campaign. You have to give it to him. He's got a young team who are very creative, and they got their message out there, whether we like it or not. He has a diverse coalition. Support included a strong base among Black voters, who are a crucial part of the city's insurgent left. Polls also showed him leading significantly among Latino voters. Of course, we know he has the Muslim vote, pretty much locked up. The progressive base, he received significant backing from young left-leaning voters. The primary turnout for younger people in New York City was as high as their turnout in the 2024 presidential election. So that was for a primary. As many people came out for a primary to vote for Mamdani as came out for the 2024 election. Voting among young voters, the concerns among young voters are economic anxiety. Mamdani's focus on economic issues resonated with young voters facing a high cost of living and inflation. His proposed policies, such as rent freezes and city-owned grocery stores, address their top concerns. Distrust of the status quo. Younger voters show low trust in traditional political institutions and parties. Mamdani, a younger, more progressive candidate, was seen as a challenger to the political establishment, making him more appealing. He's not just a progressive candidate. He's a socialist. He's a far, far left radical socialist. Digital outreach and social media, the campaign was very effective. Grassroots organizing, they were also very effective with over 10,000 volunteers. So they got the vote out, there's no question. The problem is he is kryptonite to all elected Democrats who want relevance. No sane politician with the Democratic will touch the Democratic Socialists of America. I said sane politicians. No sane politician will touch the United States, moving away from being a capitalist country. This is instant suicide in American politics. The few currently elected Democrats who have endorsed Mamdani are either on their way out of office or retirement, or have no real desire to continue to climb into higher office. And you're going to be shocked at how few people have actually endorsed him. This is right off his own website. And these are the national federal people. So you have, of course, Bernie Sanders, which is well known. Well, he's 80-something years old. He's not going anywhere anyway. Elizabeth Warren, is a far left progressive, probably would become close to a Democratic socialist if she could. I don't exactly know who this Yvette Clarke is, a congresswoman, or this Adriano Espelant, but those two. And then, of course, you have Pramila Jayapal, who's I think she's head of the Progressive Caucus, if I remember correctly, or one of the chairs of the Progressive Caucus. Then, of course, you have Jerry Nadler, who is a congressman from New York, who's actually retiring. He's not going to run again next year in the elections. So he had nothing to lose by endorsing Mamdani. And you have AOC, who, of course, is a socialist and belongs to the Squad, which is far left. And the Squad consists of her and Tlaib, who I showed you on the cover of Socialists of America. This Congressman Pat Ryan, I don't know who he is. And then you have the ex-congressman from New York, Jamil Bowman. And then, of course, you have the governor of New York and Hochul and Letitia James, the attorney general of New York. That's it. That's everybody that has endorsed her. The only other person that I saw that endorsed her was Harris, who was very reluctant to endorse him and sort of got caught by the media on camera during a book event asking her about it. She gave a very tepid endorsement, which later was followed up by his campaign saying that they had a conversation, that she gave a more full-throated endorsement, which, who knows? She didn't deny it, but there's been nothing out of her since. So the endorsements coming from the party are very, very far and few between. Then you have a Republican that came out, and she said, Zoran Mamdani's anti-Semitism isn't new. It's been on full display for years. While President Trump delivered peace and brought... anyway, New Yorkers deserve better than a terrorist sympathizer, which he is. I don't want to get into all the stuff that has happened in his campaign. I really wanted to talk about more of the effect on the party and Democratic politics. Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House Democratic Caucus, still has not endorsed him. I think he'll do a half-hearted endorsement right before the election because he's sort of obligated to. He's definitely been avoiding doing this. And even as this was on Sunday, he has not endorsed him. He was asked on ABC, on This Week on ABC Sunday, and he said that he still has not decided. He plans to have more to say about the mayor's race in the next week, and he's planning on having further conversations with Mamdani. And then, of course, Chuck Schumer hasn't said a thing either. And the other thing that's happening right now is the media, of course, is trying to trap Democratic politicians. So the media understands the game, and so do the politicians. And they're trying to tap, like Jeffries is a perfect example of why haven't you endorsed him? When are you going to endorse him? Knowing full well that there's a lot of problems here. And New York City is going to be the biggest loser. And the country is going to be a big loser. And the Democratic Party is going to be a big loser because nobody wants to touch this rail. Nobody wants to be known as a democratic socialist. Nobody wants the policies or people going around saying we want to get rid of personal assets, or we don't want people in the private sector to own shares and to own companies and employ people. This should all be done by employee-owned, basically cooperatives, just like in the Soviet Union, or sort of like how a kibbutz is run in Israel. This is not America. This is not what Americans want. I don't think that the average voter in New York understands I know for a fact they don't understand when they mention freeze the rent, how that really affects the whole system. If you freeze the rent and you're that landlord, you own that building and you can't raise that rent, and either your costs are going up, and so you make less and less margin. That's what capitalism is about. Here they wanted to remove the power from the capitalists and put it into the power of the people, as they say. The problem is, yes, we're in a mess. There's no question. We shouldn't have ended up where we are. We need to have a lot of talks about how we can get back to a reasonable capitalist society where things are a bit more balanced and things work a lot better. Things were pretty darn good in the United States in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, although in the 70s we started to stagnate. And then, of course, the 80s we had hyperinflation, but not hyper, but very high inflation. What was different during those times than we have now? And there can be a lot of discussion about that. And I have some thoughts about that of my own. And what we can go back to. There's no question that the big money and the billionaires have gotten their hands into Congress. And I think that the worst thing that has ever happened to our country was the Citizens United decision, where they allowed money into politics. I just think that was the worst decision ever. And I think that has just pulled the divide much further apart than anything else. And we have to go back and fix that. Are there some things that the progressives want that could probably work? Yeah, I happen to agree that there are some things. I think there has to be a different balance about what is governmental and what is private. But that doesn't mean that we have to go fully taking away ownership rights and having the public run everything. Should everything be privatized? Probably not. And we probably have gone too far in that direction. Should everything be run by a government and by committees? Absolutely not. And that's the other side. So you have the two extremes. And we are at the one extreme right now. There's no question. One of the areas I think that we could fix, and the numbers prove it, is we probably should go to a Medicare for all system. We would save a lot of money. And we would actually save, I saw this this week, we would save per year, starting next year, $800 billion a year if we went to a Medicare system in this country, a Medicare for all system. It's almost $1 trillion a year that we would save. Imagine in 10 years, it'll be a $10 trillion saving for the country. That's not insignificant, and maybe that's one area that we take away the profit, the potential profits from the private sector. There's a lot of places we can talk about and a lot of programs we can talk about, but that's one that I do think could fit under the social side versus the private side. But I think you're going to have a lot of pushback across the country. You're going to have, when Mamdani gets elected, and he's already told us this, President Trump is going to is already told us he is really thinking about getting rid of withholding money from New York, and I think that is a real problem. I think that he's going to withhold money from New York. He's got a decent relationship actually with Governor Hochul, because she doesn't have any national ambitions, and she really has just worked pretty well at Trump about continuing to get money in and terrorist money in, all those types of things. But Trump, whether we like it or not, if he withholds money, it's going to create a lot of chaos in New York. If Mamdani starts to put up rent freezes, you're going to see a lot of real estate companies, pull out. You're going to see a lot of buildings go up for sale, which is going to bring the prices down. You're going to you might bring the rents down. I don't know, but you're also going to have a lot of people move out, and this is not a good thing. This article just came out today, and I'm not a big fan of the Daily Signal, believe me, and nor is this writer a um, far right person that I know. Anyway, yeah, maybe he is. I don't know. Anyway, he is. Mamdani is the future of the Democratic Party, and there's little the Democratic establishment can do to stop it. I don't agree that he's the future, but he definitely is going to be a voice in the Democratic Party, and he's going to screw up the Democratic Party, I think. Most Americans are undoubtedly tired of hearing about New York and the socialists currently leading the mayoral race, but it's going to happen. New York held us for anyway. What struck with this guy about Mamdani from the beginning is not simply his radicalism, but his open radicalism. Sure, he modulated some of his positions from the heady revolutionary days of 2020. He no longer publicly says that the New York Police Department is a threat to public safety or puts photos of himself on social media flipping off Christopher Columbus statues. He's wiggled his way out of talking about the issues that he virtually everyone on the left supports when he's in power, but his policy positions remain very much to the left of what the Democratic Party would admit it supports. The Democratic Party does not want to support, and it could be clear that he's a true believer. His radicalism is hiding in plain sight. Government-run grocery stores, he's for it. Free bus rides, he's for it. I actually don't have a problem with that. That's happening in a lot of major cities in Europe, and they do figure out a way to pay for it. But I don't think his reason for it, that it's going to bring down crime. I think it's a bunch of crap. And the defunding of the police and funding social workers instead. You can't defund the police. Should you increase social work in this country? Absolutely. And there's a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I'll show you an article about that. But what Mamdani represents, the Democratic base wants somebody who resists Donald Trump no matter what. And that may be true, but I don't think this is the guy. A few weeks ago, there was a tape of him screaming belligerently at Trump's borders, our town home, and he looked like a crazy person when he was doing that. He leads this green-red coalition that openly embraces socialists and Islamists more than any previous Democratic Party iterations. And this very much works in the modern age, given the collapse of the Democratic Party establishment. Democratic base doesn't want moderation. They want confrontation. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the base. I think that's the fringe. I Googled what is the real support in the U.S. for the DSA policies, which is the Democratic Socialists of America, the group that he belongs to. National public opinion polls from this year show that support for the DSA's Democratic Socialist ideas is high among Democrats and younger voters, but declines significantly among independents and Republicans. Support for the label in September 25, just last month, a Gallup poll found 66% of Democrats had a positive view of socialism compared to 38% of independents and 14% of Republicans. Support among Democrats for the term has been on the rise since 2010. But support for the policies, poll from the DSA fund and data for progress showed broader bipartisan support for some Democratic socialist policies. 70% of respondents, including 58% of Republicans, agreed that the economic system is rigged in favor of corporations and the wealthy. That's why I think that we could head back towards some type of agreement in this country and start, this war of tribalism could start to reverse, and we can start coming back to a quote unquote normal America. And I happen to agree. 58% of Republicans and 70% of the respondents saying that there's a problem. We all know it. 83% of the respondents, including 80% of the Republicans, agreed that social work and mental health are necessary parts of a public safety budget. And, that has been lacking in this country for years, and we all see it. We see it in the homeless. We see it everywhere. Democrats consistently hold the most favorable views of democratic socialism. Some polling indicate they favor it over capitalism. I think that's younger people that have not lived a long life and haven't experienced things that older people have seen. I mean, we've seen too many socialist countries go down the tubes or become autocracies. There's really been no successful socialist country. I did a video a few months back. You can look in the in my channel here that explains the differences between capitalism and socialism and the mix and how that can work. And quite frankly, the most socialistic country of the Western democracies is Denmark. And even there, of course, it's a capitalist society. It's not a socialist society, but they use socialistic ideas to have government funding to pay for certain things that the population wants. And that's, I think, what people are looking for here. They're not looking for a takeover and the throwing out of capitalism. But I think that things have gotten so cuckoo in the last couple of years that people are grasping at things. Younger voters show Democratic socialism is more popular among voters under 45. A Cato YouGov survey found that 62% of Americans under 30 had a favorable view of socialism. And then, of course, urban versus rural voters also did. Policy messaging and effectiveness. The DSA affiliated candidates have found some successes in specific areas by framing policies, populist framing in red and purple areas, targeting specific voters. But that's not what we're looking for. But that talks to you. That gives you an idea of where people are. In terms of New York, though, and we just can't afford to have corporations leaving New York. Oh, I know. I saw Ackerman was quoted in a article today that said that 80% of all income in the city, 80% of all the tax income that came from income taxes in the city came from the top 1% of New York residences. And to be in the 1% in New York City, you have to make about $800,000 a year or more to be in the top 1%. If 2%, only a measly 2% of those people move out of New York City, go to the suburbs, they go to Westchester or out to Long Island or move to Florida, that'll take them into a negative cash flow in New York City and versus their tax revenues. Just 2%, and they're playing with fire if they don't think that people are going to move out of the city to reduce their taxes or to avoid higher income taxes. This is why I'm very afraid of Mamdani doing some of these things. The other thing I'm very afraid of is he's told us he's going to have his DSA, Democratic Socialists of America people at the top of his administration, running a lot of the different, occupying a lot of the power positions in the city. And that, to me, is a very scary thing. Unfortunately, I think we're headed towards a train wreck here. I don't think there's much we can do about it at this point. And but I wanted to bring it to your attention. I want and go and just bring it to your attention and give you my thoughts and what I see happening and what I'm hearing. And I think this is going to be very bad for New York. And if you have anybody that you know in New York that can help spread the words and not get this guy elected, it's not just because of his anti-Semitism or his radicalism or his belief, his hate of Israel, and I don't believe he likes Jews that much, but it's really because of all these other things I think are extremely dangerous for the country that have nothing to do with the terrorism or Muslim or anything like that. I just think he's just a very dangerous guy. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.
We really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference on our ability to reach more people. Thank you.